All right, welcome. Today we're going to get into the really fascinating story of what's being called the slow farewell of Nitish Kumar, who, as you know, is one of India's shrewdest political operators. We're basing this on an analysis from journalist Ravish Kumar, and we're going to try to figure out how what looks like a big honor might actually be the checkmate in a political chess game that's been going on for 16 years.
So where does this whole story really kick off? Well, it starts with this one almost surreal image. You have Nitish Kumar, right? The outgoing chief minister. And he's presenting a bouquet to Amit Shah, the very person this analysis says engineered his removal. I mean, this photo right here is the whole mystery in a nutshell. How on earth did one of the sharpest politicians in the country end up smiling at what was essentially his own farewell party?
Okay, let's really get into the moment that kicked off this whole debate. We're talking about that nomination. On the surface, it looks like a promotion, but was it really just a gentle push out the door?
Okay, so on the face of it, getting nominated to the Rajya Sabha, that's India's upper house of parliament, is a huge deal. It's a massive honor. But the analysis we're looking at says, hold on, this is something else entirely. It argues this is just the final formal step in a really long process of pushing him to the sidelines. It's like, moving a powerful queen off the chessboard with a bit of fanfare, instead of a messy, sudden capture.
And this brings us right to the heart of the theory in this analysis. What we've been watching, it says, isn't just a simple resignation. The term used is slow political assassination. Now, the end goal is the same, right? To neutralize a political rival. But the method is all about patience. It's about slowly, piece by piece, taking apart their power base and their influence until that final move just feels, well, inevitable.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is a pretty wild theory, but the source actually lays out a trail of clues, a breadcrumb trail really, from the last year that all pointed to this exact outcome. So come on, let's follow that trail.
And this whole process, it was incredibly methodical. First thing, you have Nitish Kumar, a guy famous for his long marathon press conferences, suddenly being kept away from the media. Then, his appearances on the campaign trail were super tightly controlled. You had these whispers about his health starting to circulate, but nobody ever officially confirmed or denied anything. And then, and this is just wild, he was even muted on his own party's online platforms. I mean, the election campaign was just filled with signs if you were looking for them. For instance, why would a chief minister suddenly give up efficient helicopter travel for these long, grueling road trips? The analysis suggests it had less to do with connecting with voters and more to do with managing his public appearances. He held 0 press conferences, gave no one-on-one interviews. The source puts it perfectly. The remote control was clearly in someone else's hands.
And check this out. This is a perfect example of how subtle the whole campaign was. You had the JDU's slogan, which was pretty straightforward, 25 to 30, Nitish again. Simple. But then you look at the BJP's slogan. It was just a tiny bit different, 25 to 30, Narendra and Nitish. See that? Just adding that one word "and" completely changes the power dynamic. It puts Nitish on the level of a partner, not the undisputed leader.
So what really makes this whole situation stand out, according to the analysis, is just the sheer patience of the strategy. This was the long game, especially when you put it side by side with other recent political shakeups.
I mean, just think about what happened in Maharashtra with Uddhav Thackeray, or in Madhya Pradesh with Kamal Nath. Those were like lightning strikes, right? Fast, decisive, parties split, governments fell in a matter of weeks. But Nitish Kumar, that was a whole different animal. He was this long-term, powerful ally who became a rival, and he had a huge personal brand in Bihar. A quick move could have easily backfired. And that's why, the source argues, the strategy had to be one of slow, careful co-option and then a gradual removal.
And how long was this game actually in the making? Well, the analysis traces it all the way back 16 years. 16! To a famous canceled dinner back in 2010 when Nitish publicly snubbed Narendra Modi. So no, this wasn't some snap decision. This was the final move in a decade-and-a-half-long chess match between two parties with a very, very complicated relationship.
There's a quote in the analysis that just nails the whole long game strategy. It says, "They first embraced him, then bent him, and only then brought him to the exit door." So you see, it was never about a head-on fight. The plan was to bring him in close, slowly chip away at his independence, and only when he was completely on their side, then you show him the door.
Okay, so if all these signs of a slow removal were so obvious, what was happening on the ground? How did Nitish's most loyal supporters, the JDU party workers, see all of this unfolding? And that's the big question the analysis really digs into. With all these public signals, the different slogans, the fact that he wasn't talking to the press, all the rumors, why were so many of his supporters so genuinely shocked and angry when the end finally came? I mean, the reaction was just raw. You had supporters swarming his house, and they were demanding answers. They felt completely betrayed, and not just by the BJP, but by their own leadership, who they felt had left them completely in the dark. All they wanted was simple. They wanted to hear from Nitish Kumar himself that this was his decision, that he left willingly.
And the source uses another really powerful metaphor to describe this whole strange situation. It says Nitish Kumar and his supporters were like a groom dressed for a wedding, knowing he will not be wed. Think about that. He campaigned as the face of the ticket, the groom for the chief minister's job. But it seems like everyone, maybe even Nitish himself, knew that the wedding, serving a full term, was just never going to happen.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this incredibly carefully planned exit really mean, not just for Nitish Kumar's legacy, but for the entire balance of power in India?
This timeline really lays out the whole saga, doesn't it? You go from this fierce rival who broke alliances over principles to him coming back as an ally, and now finally a nominee for the upper house. It's just this long, winding road that looks like it's ending in a pretty quiet political retirement.
And here's the bottom line. According to the analysis, this is a massive political victory for Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. I mean, they took one of their most powerful, most unpredictable rivals and managed to turn him into a neutralized ally. And they did it all without a huge, messy political fight.
And this is what it all adds up to. By moving Nitish Kumar to the Rajya Sabha, the BJP didn't just solve one problem, they solved two. They've secured their somewhat fragile coalition in Delhi, and at the same time, they've grabbed the steering wheel in Bihar. For all practical purposes, the JDU now pretty much operates as an extension of the BJP in the state. So they solved their Delhi problem and their Bihar problem in one single incredibly patient move.
And so, we're left with the exact same question that the source itself poses at the end. After all these decades as one of Bihar's most dominant politicians, was this quiet, carefully managed exit the kind of farewell he deserved? The analysis seems to suggest that maybe, just maybe, by rejoining his rivals, he was the one who ended up writing this final chapter for himself.